In today's tutorial, we will be working on the back side of page 3. So I'm going to set this aside first and then bring in my cardstock pieces. There's only a couple for this page. The first one is 3 inches by 8.5 inches. On the 8.5 inch side, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch and 8 inches. Then I have a piece that measures 12 inches by 6 inches. On the 12-inch side, we are going to score this at 6 inches. Then I have 2 pieces that measure 6 inches by 6.5 inches. On the 6.5 inch side of one piece, we are going to score at 1/2 inch along the top. And on the 6.5 inch side of the second piece, we're going to score at 1/2 inch along the bottom. For the 3 pieces with the tab sections, we are going to miter the 1/2 inch tabs. On this one, I'm going to miter all 4 of them, and then these ones I'm going to miter both sides. Then I'm going to use my bone folder to burnish those folds, and then I'll come back and we'll start assembling the page. The first thing I'm going to do is mark the page where I'm going to be placing that belly band first. So I'm going to place it, it's 3 inches, so center 1.5 inch from center. And I am marking on the top and the bottom, so I know exactly where I need to place this. Then I'm going to apply my adhesive to both of these 1/2 inch tabs on this piece, and I will use those marks as a guide for placing this, and then making sure that those score lines are both straight with the top and the bottom edge of the page. Now, if yours is sticking out over, you'll need to take it off and rescore your belly band to be a little bit smaller. So you just want to be real careful when you're scoring that everything is the right size, because sometimes it's really easy just to get it off a touch and then things are a little bit too large. Now, once we have that piece on, I'm going to take my card that I folded in half, and I'm going to place this here on the page, and I'm going to center this on my page left to right and top to bottom. So right now I'm just going to focus on left to right, so it's 3 inches from center. And then I'm going to take it in this direction. Needs to come up a little tiny bit here. So if I come back here, make sure that it is still centered. Now I'm going to just draw lines like this. So this is where I'm going to line up those edges, but here and here is where I'm going to place my adhesive. So those lines on the belly band help you to know where to place the adhesive so that the card doesn't get stuck to the base of the page where we don't want it to. So I'll just go ahead and add a little bit of my adhesive, and then I'm going to take my card, making sure that the fold is on the left hand side. And then I'm going to line up those 4 lines that I made. And then I'm going to open this and then burnish this down to my belly band. Now it's a little tiny bit off here, and that's okay. I'm not going to move it. I'm just going to erase this line. Although I think the paper, you won't be able to see it except for those ends slightly where I'll cut my decorative paper a little bit smaller, but the decorative paper will be up against that edge so you won't see it. All right, so now that I have this one on, I'm going to take one of my next flaps and I'm going to set it on here up against the score line, and then I'm going to close this. Now you want to make sure that that piece is hidden by your front cover. So if it is sticking out at all, you want to trim this down. Now that one looks good. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with this second piece. Going to just set it right up against that score line, and I'm going to close it, and it looks good. Then I'm also going to check this one. So top to bottom, it looks okay, but when I put this one on, I'm going to just slightly trim one of these to be a little tiny bit shorter than my 6 inches. That way it will tuck up underneath of the other one, and there won't be a bubble when I have all of this stuff in here. So I'm going to start with my top flap because I cut my bottom flap just that tiny bit smaller. So starting with this one, I'm going to use that score line on the left as my guide for placing this, and then making sure that it's lined up with the top and bottom edge. And adhering this down. Actually, I might end up having to cut that one too now that I think about it. Let me see here. If I put the tab over this, it will stick out slightly. So you see how this is sticking out just slightly here? I don't want to see that. So I am going to bring my paper trimmer in here and show you what I'm going to do. That way, if you need to do this too, you can. I'm going to flip this open like this so that I can get this in here and just barely cut off a little tiny piece. Now, when I take this off, you'll see there's a little tiny bit of a gap there. That way, when I put my tab there, that'll be perfect. So neither of them will extend past the edges. So once you have your pieces trimmed, you can go ahead and put your second flap on here. Put this one right down here at the bottom, lining up that score line on the left and at the bottom, and then the right side should also be lined up, and then go ahead and burnish this down. Now you could add another flap here if you wanted to add another 6 by 6 flap or 6 by 6.5 with the 1/2 inch tab. You could, but I'm just going to leave it like this with these ones. And this is the build for the page. So next we're going to come in and start decorating with our papers and our closures. From the 12 by 12, I've cut out these 2 cards from the paper. Now I'm going to be placing one here on the front of my booklet. And the second one, I'm going to open all of these up and place my second one here. Now, if you want to make all of these photo spots, you don't have to add this one here. You could use the back side if you wanted to put a photo there and didn't want to cover this up. But I like to see the decorative papers in addition to photos, so I'm going to be placing this one here. Then we'll go ahead and come back and add our papers to all these other places once these 2 cards are on. Once I have my card on the front, I'm going to go ahead and flip into the inside and add my magnet first. I'm going to place it in the center and about 1/2 inch from that edge. Then I'm going to attach my second magnet, close my flap, and place it on this side here. I've taken this 12 by 12 paper. It had this down here, down the side, and the back side had the lantern. It was a larger image. I've cut the whole thing up into pieces that measure 4 inches by 5 3/4. I have 6 pieces, but I'm only going to be using 5 of them. And then from This 12 by 12 paper, I've cut a strip off the bottom that measured 5 3/4 by 12, and I've cut 7/8 of an inch strips, and I've cut 10 of these. So what I'm going to be doing is going through and making a photo mat, and these, I've actually kept them in the order that I cut them so that they will be a continuous pattern. Not that it matters because this pattern is so varied, you won't even notice it if you don't do this. So I have these pieces here, and I'm going to place it like this. Before you cut your papers though, if you want your photos to be in the landscape orientation, you want to make sure that you cut your papers in the correct orientation too. But I don't actually recommend doing that on this flap or this flap because of the magnets. I don't like to put photos over top the magnets unless I can't help it. I try not to in my albums because I think it just kind of, sometimes it'll ruin the photos. So I try not to do that. So all of mine are going to be in the portrait orientation. And the magnets are going to be covered by the decorative paper so that the photos won't be caught in them. And so I'm going to place that here, and I'm going to take this next set, and I'm going to place these here and here. Then I'm going to open up and do the same thing with the rest of the flaps. I'm going to come back and show you once I have all of these on, and then I'm going to add some fussy cutting elements through the pages as well, just to give it some extra decoration. All of the cut aparts that I'm using from the fussy cutting sheets are from the one with the wood grain on it, so I've taken all of them from that. Now I've taken the little house and placed it down here, left it open. The little water jug here is open. I've got the flower pots here that are open, the little butterfly here, and then down here I've got the little fountain that's open. Now I'm going to close all of these back up, and I'm going to focus on the rest of the page. So from the cut apart paper that we've already been using that has the green polka dots, I've cut 2 pieces that measure 2 3/4 by 5/8, and I'm going to place one here and one here. Whoop, there's my puppy. And from this 12 by 12 paper, I've cut 2 pieces to 3 inches by 7 1/4 inches, and I'm going to place one here and one here, tucking slightly into the belly band. Now that I have these papers on, the page is complete for now. In another tutorial, like I've mentioned in previous pages, we will make an insert for back here for behind the belly band. So that is the end of this tutorial. Now, if you're just joining the tutorial series, don't forget to check the links in the description box below so you can go and purchase your supplies from Scrap and Crate and my Etsy shop and follow along. I'll see you in the next tutorial.